Welcome back to the SMITE Pro League. A little bit earlier than expected, I would say, for the set 2 of the day, the final day of Week 8. Mifflin joining me on the desk to break this one down as we take a nice little look now at Obey up against Spacestation Gaming. Mifflin, this matchup, an interesting one. Spacestation on the up and up. Obey have been looking a lot better, but this looks like a real challenge for them today.
If Space Station's playing at 100%, it's going to be a real uphill battle for Obey. I mean, across the board, these guys have very similar play styles. They like to play through their mid laners. The junglers are really huge difference makers. P's and B's, I think, are to be the most impactful part of these games. If Obey are able to shut down the picks that we're starting to see out of SSG, if they can maybe make sure Dardes doesn't get on the Afro, keep Raffer away from that Khepri. I'm going to repeat that because it's so important. Keep Raffer away from that Khepri, then we're going to be able to see whether or not Obey is able to really step up to the Kings.
Yeah, it seems to be the game plan that we've seen out of Space Station a lot of the time so far, at the top of the standings at the moment, as you see. I think the big thing with them is they're playing around a lot of the time this idea of assassins getting aggressive, the front line willing to dive in deep, and then have the support, in fact, of the Guardian there to give them the shields, to give them some sort of revitalization where required. And it's working out so well for them. They're playing like a very well-tuned orchestra, SSG, at the moment, which is what you like to see. Whereas Obey, I think they're trying to get there, right? But they're like trying to get the muscle memory like into place now, so they just get repetitive with what their game plan's going to be.
Yeah, to keep your music analogy going, I think Obey is more of a grunge band that can reach these degrees of brilliance in flashes. We see sometimes that Sino is able to single-handedly win them a game. Sometimes Bobby pops off, finds these engagements that are able to turn around these matches. Ducky on that not Cerberus, Jormungandr last week showed that he can play highly damaged hybrid-esque builds with health focus and absolutely decimate a game himself. Obey throughout the weeks have shown that they have individual pieces that are stars in of their own right. For the first couple weeks, it really looked like it was only Ducky that was able to step up, but Wowie's been having a fantastic year as the year goes on. Bobby's been cleaning up his act. Wolfie's been really stepping up now that he's not had a shot call nearly as much. This Obey roster does have a shot today.
Yeah, I think they do as well, although we look back at exactly last time they played, Week 4, it was an easy 2-0 to an extent for SSG. But that was at a time when SSG were kind of going through the mix really. People thought they weren't really putting as much effort in. The guys were saying themselves they've not really been throwing their whole weight behind these games. But since then, they have gone on a bit of a streak just lately, being some top teams. I mean, Radiant, Sanguine, and PK. 3 teams they've just been defeated in the last 2 weeks as well. And I think a lot of that really comes down to people are having a hard time breaking them down in team fights because, well, what we've seen out of SSG so far, Miff, they like to just wait it out, wait for the middle game. It's a very EU-esque sort of design that they've got for them, and that makes sense because they're all EU players.
It makes perfect sense. Raffer almost looks like he's just waiting for the time. He's big chilling for the first 10 minutes until he can really get the Scarab's Blessing online or get a Geb shield rolling. He's not playing the initiator focus that we saw in the first 6 weeks or so. Now he's really, or not 6 weeks, 3 weeks, I should say. The record that they had originally was 3-3. Now they're, what is it, 5-3? Like, this is absolutely insane, the comeback that they've been able to make. And I think a lot of it is due to the fact that Cherio's had a degree of consistency that is really a pillar for this SSG roster, and he brings a lot in the out of game, a lot of incorporeal that Cherry is able to bring. He's keeping his team focused, making sure that they're able to maintain scrim anatomy, not really troll anymore. I think that's hugely impactful for this squad.
And I do think that SSG, when we look at this set specifically now, I think SSG might experiment a little bit more here. They know they're against the bottom of the league. They've got a bit of room for maneuver, I would say, to just mix up their picks and bans a bit, maybe expand on some of the god pulls we've seen so far. We'll see if SSG look for that. Meanwhile, though, let's have a little talk about Obey. And Obey's recent run of form. I mean, sure, they've not won every game they've come into, Myth, but they've taken games off some of the top teams now. They are starting to get there. The momentum is finally with them. I don't think necessarily they're going to make it to playoffs with how things are looking now, Myth, but it's looking good for them if they can keep this going into Phase 2.
If they're able to find the win today and continue winning with the performance that we saw from E United earlier, if they keep losing as they have been, Obey's really only way in is to win the head-to-head against E United and then find a way into the playoffs. It's a hard task, but they're certainly not out of the running, and I'm sure after watching this E United set, it's going to set a fire under Obey. They really need to start winning if E United is going to afford them the opportunity to somehow miraculously make the playoffs.
But I think realistically, Obey really have to win out now, so they have to win this SSG set too. We did get a chance, though, to sit down and have a talk with Obey before this set and see what they had to say going into it.
All right, well, we're here with the solo laner from Obey, Ducky himself, going to be coming through. And before we get into the set that you're preparing for, you guys just beat E United. You got a second win under your belts. How does it feel?
Mm-hmm. Oh, it feels good. It feels a nice little 2-0 for once, which we haven't had in a while. So, I don't know. High spirits going into these games, I think.
I mean, it's been interesting to watch Obey's growth, because like every single week we got to say early on that we could feel you getting better, and then things, you know, these last couple weeks have really kicked off for you. But SSG as a whole are kind of a different beast to tackle as of right now. They've been changing just as much. And, you know, Nika specifically, but realistically, all of them have been pulling out some different picks. So how do you prepare for a team that has a very versatile background in gods?
I mean, we just have to focus on like 2 people individually instead of because I don't think we can ban everyone out. They all have like really diverse god pools. It's like maybe ban out Rafa and then see who can get the Yorm out of me and Nika and see what happens there.
I'll try to lock it in first. And that's actually a good segue into this last question I have for you, which is just that in solo lane, there's different times to rotate that we've seen between like you or Nika, or, you know, fine, okay, if you want to bring in other solo laners, different gods, all these matchups. How do you keep that straight in your head when you're going into a game? Like, how do you prepare for the solo lane?
I mean, usually you'll know after picks and bans. Like, if they've picked, a good example would be Tyr again. You know you can't like follow the rotations. He's got a really strong mid game, so you need to play around having the better late game, which is what we did. Or say, for example, if I was playing Osiris, I'd have a slightly better early game, so we'd play around that and invade blues. And I know usually you know straight off the pick. So obviously with warriors going in the jungle now, you don't know where everything's going, so it's a little more difficult.
Yeah, everything's topsy-turvy. You see that tier locked in, and you'd wonder if someone's going to give you the Lasses special from years ago, and all of a sudden it's in the jungle again. But either way, it's been fun watching you guys grow. I'm just going to ask you quickly, what would your set prediction be for this one? How are you guys feeling? How confident is Obey in this one?
I don't know. I want another 2-0. I want to try and get another 2-0. That'd be fun.
Oh, you're tasting the 2-0. You're feeling a 2-0.
Yeah,
nice quick weekend for Obey. I think it'd be fun to watch. Either way, I know everyone's excited to see what Obey has in store for us. So thanks for your time, man, and good luck in your games.
Thank you.
That was Ducky from Obey, and we go straight into the picks and bans now to see if Obey can find that 2-0 Mifflin. That's what I'm talking about. I was talking with Gory in game 1. I want to hear these guys go, yeah, we're going to give them a 2-0 hiding, nice and quick. I mean, I don't know why Sanguine didn't say that earlier. They did that in the first set of the day. But this is pretty, you know, interesting to hear Ducky go, we're going to 2-0 SSG. I'm like, okay, let's see it.
Confidence has got to be at an all-time high for this Obey roster. I mean, when Ducky says he's going for a 2-0, for some reason, in my heart, I feel like I can believe him. They've got a strategy already. Banning out the Aphrodite, get it off of Dardes. I like what they're going for. I'd like to see Ducky play some aggressive picks to match up with Sino's pressure that we've been seeing out of these warrior jungles. And from there, maybe they're able to win out in the early game, make sure the Raffer can't get off the ground running.
You've been watching too much anime and rooting for the underdog too much, Mifflin, for my liking. Like, you can't sit there and go, yeah, I can believe him. Camazot's Fafnir taken out by SSG so far. Fafnir's an interesting one in terms of what Inbound's been playing as of late, Miff. He's very much been leaning on this Fafnir to allow him to engage and then, well, basically return to action again with the Dragon form, buy himself a bit more time. I don't mind that look from SSG, right? Take it away from Inbound, make him play something else where he has struggled this year.
He really does. That Fafnir covers a lot of Inbound's weaknesses. Sometimes we see him jump in almost without even calculating the pressure that he's jumping into. 5 members. Dragon form is going to be that Aegis and allow him to get his jump back. Now that it's banned away, usually we see him get really exploited in the early game. He's been a lot of the first bloods on the side of Obey. He maybe gets a little bit overzealous with his aggression in the early. So banning out Fafnir, making Inbound feel uncomfortable, that's going to be a fantastic way for SSG to find an in the early game.
Well, Kepri banned out leaves quite a lot of things on the table here, actually, with how these bans have gone. Nike available for one. I mean, King Arthur, Jormungandr. I wouldn't be surprised if we see those go either way, that Jormungandr and King Arthur, with how that'll play out. But it's going to be an all early on for SSG. It is a little bit flexible for them here, Miff, but we've seen Dardes lean towards the mages rather than the hunters as of late. So it does kind of stand out to me that's probably going to vote at the moment.
I would way prefer to see this on Vote. Dardas has seen so much success on these unorthodox mages that I think taking him off of that is just a misplay. Whereas Vote's been having a little bit of a less consistent year this year. He's been struggling against some of the lower tier hunters in the league. He's been having very poor performances even when his team's winning sometimes. So putting him on this high pressure pick inside of Ull means that likely there's just about nothing you can throw into that long lane for Obey that's going to be able to stop at least the lane pressure that Ull brings.
Now, Nike picked up for Obey here, more than likely for the jungle. We generally do see it go to the jungle position, and of course it's Sino playing for Obey now, and he's been playing quite a bit of that. Raijin again for the mid lane of Wolfie. That's one of his go-to picks. He's kept his Gopal relatively clean and small for now, and Raijin will be there. But then again, Hera now in the mix, and this is really a Dardas special. He's the one that's really pulled it out more than anybody else so far this split.
I can't even remember anyone else playing this Hera, but I'm sure someone in the chat's correcting me as we speak. I like what we're seeing from Obey. I'm surprised that Jormungandr has made it this far through the pick phase, and I'm surprised SSG don't take it away. So I imagine Obey is certainly going to get it before that second wave of bans. And the pressure that SSG's comp has right now, the kill pressure in the short lane just because you have a King Arthur, and the long lane because you have this Uller, I think a safe pick in your solo is a very wise pickup for Obey.
Well, last time we saw Obey pick that Jormungandr, it was on Ducky, and it did go for more of a damaging build, which I think under the circumstances made sense. This game, though, I don't know if damage is going to be as important as survivability against this composition that SSG have so far.
Oh, so far, I think you can make the argument that backline dive with Spear of Deso and that ethereal staff build that we saw from Ducky should be good. You want to be able to burst through Hera's shield. You want to make sure that this Uller doesn't have an easy time free casting from a range. So having another source of damage, another person that can eliminate the backline could be highly valuable. And as long as the front line from SSG doesn't get too much more powerful than it already is in just this King Arthur, I think you can sacrifice a little bit of the tankiness with the draft as it's going now. Banning out the Geb from Obey, it seems like they really figured out what Raffer wants.
Well, it looks like it's a battle of the supports now. There's multiple bans going towards SSG support and Obey support here. Inbound not going to be able to play Jingten, Hercules, or the Fafnir. But that means Obey get the first option now. I guess Sobek and Emoja on the table. They're probably the top two I can think of in that support. I mean, maybe not so much Sobek, but he could flex to that position, right? I'm trying to think of what's left.
Sobek comes to mind, Yamoja comes to mind, maybe even a standard warrior. We've seen a little bit of Erlang, we've seen a little bit of like that type of playstyle that can get aggressive. Sobek getting picked up from Obey is smart. You're denying another one of those guardians. It's a facilitator-esque guardian that Raffer really does lean towards. But even then, you've already shown your hand. You know that Jormungandr is going towards solo, and Sobek has to be paired with someone that can either clear waves incredibly efficiently or have kill potential, like an On Her or something like that. It's going to make Wowie have to pop off a little bit harder, because when you put Sobek into that long lane, you really expect him to get off to a fantastic aggressive start.
I think that's the funny thing about this. Now that Yamoja's been locked in for Spacestation Gaming here, Myth, I think both the supports will be quite happy with their wheelhouse here. Yamoja's very much a backliner, going to be able to put out decent poke and support the team, whereas Sobek is the aggressive option in the Guardian role still. Be the front line, be engaging, looking for the plucks, trying to set up the team some more. And that's kind of where Inbound's been defaulting to so far this year.
It is, but now he's got that double-edged sword. Miss your pluck, you're probably gonna die. That's a high execution rate, and when I think of Bobby, I think of facilitating your team with buffs, maybe throwing out long range stuns. I don't know that I fully trust him just yet to be going as aggressive, as risky as a Sobek can be. And with a Hachiman pairing up with him, that aggression really isn't all that there. It's going to be a very passive lane, and they have to be worried about this Pele constantly ganking. I would have much preferred to see an On Her or something along those lines.
Yeah, I think maybe the only thing I really see here, Myth, honestly, looking at Obey's squad, they're a little bit light on damage. They're going to rely a lot on Wolfie and of course, Wowie in that dual lane to put out damage sources here. Nike, Jormungandr, and of course, the Sobek, they're going to frontline, but they've got to get enough damage out. And when you look at the composition SSG have, there's a lot of shields here. I don't know. We'll find out, though. Game one's about to begin. SSG up against Obey.
Thank you so much, Hindu, and that's right, a must-win here for Obey as we come through. Myself, Gormizer, joined by Aggro on the cast here. And Aggro, this is a very important win for Obey to be able to pick up if they want to keep playoffs in any sort of lineup for themselves.
Yeah, that's the pressure, man. I mean, it feels a little bit unfair with how well Obey is playing as of late to say that they're already back against the wall to qualify for playoffs, but that's what you get whenever you have such a rough start to the season. And now, despite their level of play currently, of course, it's got to take into account everything we've seen from them up until this point as a squad. So this is a very, very important set for them here today up against the hottest team in the entire league, which is Spacestation Gaming.
Pretty big win streak coming in for SSG, and inbound, I kind of like the way they're doing this. I mean, you pick Sobek to maybe get aggressive in this lane, look for some plucks, and try to shut down Vote. So get in there and try to cause at least a little bit of trouble for him, and that's where I maybe see Obey being successful. And there's a lot that SSG have going for him. Late game, whether you want to look at the Hera, if you want to look at the Terra there coming in for Iraffer, or just vote on Uller, who has been one of the most consistent hunters and players that we've seen in terms of combination. I mean, what do Obey need to do in order to maybe slow this down and take control early on?
It's got to be Sino getting off to these starts that he's been really good at so far this year, and that's why you don't want to see this, but a clean, quick blink over the wall, and it's all in the name of farm here, Gormizer. It's not just running away. Grabs the minis off of SSG's side of the map. It just feels like when Sino's able to get off to these great leads on these Warriors, Warriors just inherently snowball very effectively. That's what you want to see from him.
Well, right now, Dardez locked down. One more hit from Sino, and Wolfie is going to be what it needs for first blood there. Now Cherio in an awkward spot. The damage still coming down on top of him. Wolfie's one hit away, and Cherio is going to be able to get that kill. And now the movement speed, the knockup, going to allow him to get away, but only for a second. Sino jumps over the wall, and even without his blink, he can close that gap. Make sure to get the kill. Obey lead 2 for 1, and both of them going on to the jungler.
So that's perfect for Obey Alliance. That's best case scenario. Sino gets himself a double kill, including first blood to start it off. Wolfie understands his job in that instance is to dash in, set up for that first blood. It's likely going to cost him his life, but he puts out a lot of damage just via auto attacks on the Cherio and makes Sino's job very easy after the fact. Wolfie doesn't play scared in that moment of dying and finds himself ahead because he picks up those 2 assists instead of just the 1 that Dardez gets. So a great start for Obey. And I think that Obey's composition does scale pretty well into the late game. I agree that Space Stations is scary with the Terra and the ability to die from that and the team fight potential from Dardez that he's really showed on this Hera. But you've got Raijin late game here for Obey. You've got Nike late game, which can be really hard to deal with at times. You've got Sobek and Yorm, 2 really difficult to kill Guardians. I think that Obey want to get off to an early lead because that's just the easiest way to win Smite games is to start winning earlier than later. But I don't think that they need to in order to win this game. They've got the tools to do it late as well.
I can guarantee that an ahead Nike is a happy Nike, and it feels like that's the case here for Obey. There's Sino coming over here to the duo lane. Looked like he wanted a little bit more than just some poke, but it is going to force SSG out of the jungle. They've been pretty aggressive over here around the purple buff, looking for invades just to try and cut some of the farm down for the duo lane from Obey. And that has maybe been a little bit of the conversation. I mean, Wolfie, Wowie, Sino now that he's joined are big aspects of this team, but it has been a little easier to bully inbound overall throughout these games. Is that maybe an avenue for success, is just shutting down this Sobek and not letting him get any setup?
It definitely has been previously for Obey, but inbound has played a little bit safer. Maybe not right now, as he just got his pluck blocked perfectly by SSG, but the shell will buy him enough space in order to get away. But yes, I think that is something that still Obey needs to work on. As well as they've been playing, they haven't been looking like the best team in the league. They still haven't looked like the cleanest team in the league. And they still have a lot of areas where I think they can get better.
Well, the pluck comes through onto Vote there. The knockup's going to be good onto both. Vote has no mana and low health, has just enough for the jump, and is going to make it over the wall. But Wowie still looking to chase down. Wowie does not have his ult available, but will be able to drop the flag. They want this kill more than anything, but Raffer's just a little too fast. The healing's there, and it looks like they might get out clean. Wolfie, though, looking to make the rotation. Tycho drums through the wall. Maybe could have been in the equation there for him, but he opts to fall back, take the oracles, get some farm, and just push SSG out of there. Make sure that they can't get the farm that they want to stay in this, so down, but out.
Man, really, really close for that kill onto Vote there, and really good patience by Vote. No beads for him, and just sticks around too long. Inbound finds a really strong pluck, and then Vote's pathing is very smart after the fact. You know you need to use the walls because you're not going to be able to get away from that mounted archery otherwise. Vote's patience on holding that ult. You want to wait until Wowie uses mounted archery, because if you jump too early and then Wowie's able to just hop on the horse and come careening around the corner, it's going to be very easy for him to get that kill. So good patience by Vote. Maybe Wowie could have held mounted archery a little bit longer and guaranteed that kill. I think that is a bit of a drop there from Obey Alliance in that long lane, and a pretty important one at that, because you really would love to set this Uller even a slight bit behind, because that just slows the inevitable snowball that will still happen in that lane with an Uller. Eventually, Vote will start winning pressure heavily.
Well, Sino's going to go in. Sentinel Zeus comes down, but Argus is dropped. It doesn't matter. Dardez is off of the map. Wolfie uses the last of his mana to escape over the wall there. And now the World Serpent comes crashing down onto Cherio, looking for the lockup, and Nika's rotated in as well. A good pluck from Inbound, going to be able to help save his team and peel for him, and that's going to be a kill onto Cherio. Now Inbound just trying to get away with his life, goes up into the air thanks to King Arthur. Nika's going to be able to walk away with that kill, so making sure they keep it even all around. Support for jungler is going to be worthwhile, especially with Dardez having died just earlier in that fight as well. Obey are picking up the kills they need.
And it's all centered around Sino and his aggressiveness in this jungle. I mean, the call is clear and concise, and Wolfie is listening to it all the way. Even when he's struggling with Cherio right in his face, right on top of him, Wolfie is looking at the prime target, which is Dardez, and is able to put his Tycho Drums damage out onto him, and still end up getting away because of some good peel coming in. You love to see how well Sino's using this Nike shield as well. I think it's been a big part of why he's so successful on this pick.
Well, now it's SSG getting aggressive. Body blocks are solid onto Ducky. No World Serpent means he doesn't have necessarily the easiest getaway, but he is still a Guardian, and he's still going to be able to walk out of that one, but loses a lot of pressure, and I believe it's blue buff to boot there. So SSG are taking back these small wins in terms of experience. They're getting buffs a little bit across the map, but it's still starting to mount up just under a 2,000 gold lead here for Obey Alliance. It's the beginnings of something fresh, but how do they transition a solid lead like that into the mid game?
It's got to be centered around buff invades and objectives. I mean, you got to start looking for things like Gold Fury, but the problem is that you don't have great objective secure with this composition, but you do have pretty good objective zone. I mean, Yorm creates a lot of space for you pretty easily because he can overextend on zoning because he isn't too worried about dying with use of that ultimate. Inbound can get up there pretty far for the same reasons, so you're not too worried about either of those two dying, and you just have Sino tanking it up for you, or Inbound tanking it up and Sino creating space. There should be a window where that's possible if Obey can get at least one pick and open up those objectives. But this has been a problem for Obey in the past this year, maybe less with the Sino iteration, but they've gotten leads, but then have been unable to transition those into something tangible, into buff invades, into objectives.
Yeah.
Kills aren't going to be enough, so I'm looking forward to seeing if they have found a way to remedy that and are going to be a little bit more objective focused.
Yeah, the goal is to not fumble the lead that you have as of right now, because it falls away so easily, especially as you pointed out around things like the Gold Fury, and if the buffs keep going the way they're going, where SSG feel like they can kind of free roam into your jungle. I mean, I see a ton of wards over there on the right-hand side, making sure to catch any pathing from Sino or from Ducky around that blue buff. It's going to make it a little more difficult to try and knock it down, and Raffer is in the neighborhood along with Nika. And soon enough, Cherio is going to be joining them. And right now, it's just a little bit of poke on the Ducky. But I think it's to build up this engage that's going to start in mid. Looking for a pluck there is Inbound, but it's going to be just wide. So Dardez does manage to keep his life this time. And I think it's pulled enough of Obey away that, well, Ducky just has to miss that blue buff.
That's sometimes what you got to do as a solo laner. Wolfie jumps the wrong way, not towards his team. Cherio instantly hits the gas pedal. Wolfie has some pretty good self-peel. Sino not afforded that same luxury.
Yeah, it's going to end up going down there. Now the chase is on to Wolfie. He's going to stay alive thanks to the towers peeling for him. And it's going to be the chase down onto Wowie from Vote more than anything. SSG taking Obey's aggression and turning it on their head. But Sino going down there, maybe the most important. Wowie forced to use his ult just to retreat and stay alive under that tier 2. But once again, it comes down to maybe we don't get the kills, maybe we only walk away with the one. We're going to be able to steal some of these buffs. And we actually can take a look to see what happened back there for Dardez to be able to turn that one around. because that was maybe one of the bigger moments. I mean, Dardes has been getting camped. He was 0-2 right before this, and well, lo and behold, wouldn't you guess, it's the sixth man in Argus that comes in and saves the day.
Yeah, between Argus and Vote, you've got some pretty beefy fellas there to back you up on that dive, and that time Sino doesn't have the help from Wolfie or from Inbound to really be effective in getting that kill. And now Sino, despite the great start, is already falling a little bit behind an assassin with great clear like Pele up against a warrior that is good enough in clear, but certainly not as good as a traditional assassin. This is kind of what you expect, is Nike to fall behind a little bit unless she's finding kills. Now, Sino still is up a little bit of gold, about 400 gold in net worth, mostly thanks to that first blood bounty. But you start to see the trend of Obey got some kills, but not enough on the back end to really make it a true lead. As it stands, now we're even.
And it's going to be even more difficult. I mean, you're losing a little bit of that XP lead that you had in the jungle. In fact, almost all of the XP lead is gone. There's a level and a half, let's call it, there for Vote that is above Wowie. The only person really pulling ahead is Inbound, not necessarily the end-all, be-all for these games. So they're looking for the farm wherever they can find. And right now, it's SSG maybe looking for some pressure over here. Oracles go down in favor of Obey, but the want to fight from Space Station is showcasing that SSG don't care that Obey have been controlling a lot of these early game fights. They don't care that they were up 4-2 at one point. They know they can flip this on its head whenever they need to.
Sino again, very, very far forward, but there for even a little bit of the enemy's farm. Bit off the mark there from Inbound, which maybe would have set up Raffer for an unkind position, but don't think it would have necessarily resulted in a clean kill either way.
And honestly, I think, and you can back me up on this, or disagree depending on how it is, but if Inbound hits these plucks more consistently, usually that translates to good news for Sobek and the rest of the team. Ideally, you're locking them down, but if you get a counter for each one of those that goes just a little off the mark, I think that might be aggression. The worst thing about Sobek pluck is that it kind of misplaces you. You miss it, and all of a sudden you're in the middle of the enemy team.
Yeah, it's difficult to survive if you're not going to be landing those Sobek plucks, and there have certainly been some opportunities there for Inbound. He's also hit a fair share. It's been pretty split. It feels like the one time he went under at mid, still got Dardez's beads, so really wasn't the end of the world there. Hitting 100% of the Sobek plucks isn't. It's just not going to happen realistically. I think that a lot of people may feel like that, you know, at the SPL level, they're going to hit 100% of their Sobek plucks, and they hit a lot, but you're also trying to hit people who have played against Sobek 100,000 times at this point. So it is more difficult than I think a lot of the fans necessarily give it credit for, but absolutely, if you're picking Sobek and you're not, you know, hitting 70% of your plucks, you probably shouldn't be picking the character at all, especially in support where you're not gonna have the farm to just lurking in the waters out of danger if you miss that pluck. In support, you're so far behind that you're really food as soon as you miss.
Well, Ducky forced into the World Serpent here as the pressure from SSG mounts over on the blue buff. That's going to be Argus coming down, and Sino, wrong place, wrong time, eliminated there. Cherio going to get killed off in the backline thanks to Ducky getting a tick of damage, but unfortunately for Ducky, he's been burned down just enough. Didn't use the World Serpent to escape, and now it's the lockdown. Inbound, unfortunately, under duress this time around. Tier 1 tower, early on in the game, maybe enough, but right now, 14 minutes in, that's enough for SSG to have the green light. They go ahead and move on in. That should be a tower along with 3 kills. I think Cherio's still screaming worth.
Absolutely. He's very happy with that outcome, I'm sure, because this dive in from Sino is really just getting stuffed now by Dardez. And I love this Hera pick. Obviously, this is what both teams probably expected. If we know that Sino's going to take Nike if it's open early on in the draft, and we know Dardez is going to take Hera as long as it looks pretty good to him, and this seems like a matchup that Dardez is pretty happy to take. And it seems centered to me around the strength of this polymorph and the fact that Sino's using that leap a lot to engage. As soon as that leap comes out, Argus is going to be able to slam this Nike consistently, because Argus is CC immune. So it doesn't matter that Nike has this massive slow. It's what keeps people off of her.
Yeah.
A lot of times during that Sentinel of Zeus ultimate doesn't affect Argus. So Argus is going to be able to do a lot of damage. And that polymorph on top of that, Nike ult is really effective because it slows so heavily that she's able to get guaranteed autos on you for a long period of time. It's 6 seconds where you get that giant slow. And when you get polymorphed, all you really did was give yourself a shield and slow for a while, but the damage isn't that nuts. It's really dependent on the rest of your follow-up, and this polymorph from Dardes is preventing all of that extra follow-up and making this Nike pick look pretty anemic in the jungle.
And once again, it comes down to this Hera, and realistically still being one of the only ones playing it for Dardes. It's just making SSG's play style so much different. And this is something they mentioned the other day in their post-game interview, where it just comes down to the fact that they're so versatile. It's kind of hard to ban against them, and well, it seems equally difficult to play against them. Raffer maybe takes a step too far forward. No one's going to make the mistake of getting plucked here, misstepping here. And Vote actually wants to get more aggressive than the rest of his team. I think that's SSG kind of giving a little flex around the Gold Fury to make sure Obey know they can't take it.
Especially with the lead that Vote has on that side of the map. I mean, he's up 2 levels.
2
levels?
levels?
Without any sort of kills, really. He got the 1 assist when he rotated in and killed Sino. It helped Dardes out on his red buff, but other than that, it's really just been good old-fashioned cyberbullying here from Vote on this side of the map. It's been really forcing out Wowie's ultimate consistently. Probably been a lot of Big O invades and purple buff invades that really has put Vote in this sort of commanding position. This is what I was talking about earlier. Eventually, Uller, once this 1v1 starts happening, it's not the 2v2, and once he gets Transcendent stacks, he just owns this lane, and there's really not a whole lot that Wowie can do about it. And Wowie's done a good job of surviving. The fact that he hasn't died, hasn't become too vulnerable and lost his beads and been set up for a gank is really a pretty acceptable position to be in up against this Uller.
I mean, being able to find this control, I'm actually happy we're looking in at Vote, because Vote, he does this build. It's just different than you see on any other hunter, and honestly, even other people who pick up Uller don't quite go the same route, but he's gone the Jotun's Wrath. He's going once again into that tree. Is this something that is unique only to Uller to kind of go more maybe ability-based?
Yeah, this is pretty much an Uller-only build that some players do sometimes, though it seems to have gotten a little bit less popular as of late. You basically turn him into a mage in the mid to late game. He'll go Heartseeker or go Titan's Bane, and those abilities will be swinging like mage abilities, but also doing auto attack damage like a hunter.
Oh, it's going to have to do a lot there, and it helps burn down Sino, no problem. Sentinel of Zeus, it's not an issue. Now Wolfie low in the backline. Darda is going to be able to get credit for that kill. Cherio chasing down inbound, and the World Serpent is trying to disrupt everyone, but Ducky just ends up in the middle of the whole team. SSG pick up the scraps that are left. Inbound's the only one left, and he's too low to try and defend. This is looking like a free Gold Fury for SSG. 4 kills to boot, and they've taken absolute control of this game.
Yeah, that's a clean one right there by SSG. That was pretty easy for them. Sino again, right into the back line, straight into damage from Dardes and Vote. The dive is really not timed well right now for Obey. Sino's going in alone at the very beginning, and this was working for a long period of time at the very beginning. And this is what I always worry about with new teams is when your first strategy works really, really well, and Obey's first strategy has been put Sino on a warrior, he solo dives, gets value, gets actives, gets out, and then Ducky and whoever else come in and clean up. Teams just recognize that at this point, and they're ready to play around it. They're willing to all-in commit onto Sino because they know no one's going to go with him. They want to come in later, and so you have to get your next game plan ready to go. And I think that's what good teams will force you to do, which is go with your secondary plan, because your primary plan is usually going to get stuffed out pretty quickly.
As of right now, I don't know if Raffer's gotten the memo that he's playing support and that he is a Guardian here, but he's definitely not been acting like it. A lot of farm over there in the solo lane. Even now, he's looking for a lot of pressure in the jungle to maybe keep Wolfie on his toes and try to force out any relics he might be able to. Pyromancer goes down. All of the tier 1 towers have been cleared off throughout all of this. So Space Station, they have control of the map, but there's still those tier 2 towers standing in the way. There's still a lot of gold that is available for them. Where do Obey start to draw the stopping line? How do they get in there? Is it waiting for a Fire Giant fight for SSG to misstep, or do they have to find a defense somewhere else?
Yeah, I've got bad news for you and Obey here, Goemeiser. I think we're looking at Phoenix defense territory because it was only one fight that went horrendously wrong there for Obey, but it's now a 7K deficit for them. 7K is really not a position where I think that you can effectively defend fire. I mean, maybe you go in and hope that their objective DPS is going to be fairly low. I mean, you look at the draft here from SSG. They have Uller, whose objective DPS really isn't that good. You've got Hera, who's really the same way. So maybe you look at what SSG has and you say that we can get in there and cause some havoc. But I think it's either Fire Giant defense or Phoenix defense, because anything else is just not worth Obey's time.
Well, it's not the end-all be-all, and you actually mentioned it yourself, that Obey has the better, secure when it comes down to objectives. So maybe Wolfie's able to help sneak something away from SSG as the game transitions. But the gold in their favor, Obey, they had a 4-2 kill lead a few minutes into this game. And since then, they've gotten 1 kill, whereas 9 kills have fallen the way of SSG. I mean, where's the setup have to come from, right? Ducky is trying to go in with the World Serpent, ends up kind of isolated in the middle of SSG. Sino jumps in too soon. Sentinel of Zeus doesn't save him, and unfortunately for Inbound, it feels like he just hasn't had the same potency as it comes through. He's even gotten the Divine Ruin. Would you have preferred to see something tankier there?
Yeah, I don't understand the need for Divine here for Inbound. He already has the anti-heal on his 3. You've just got to trust that Wolfie's going to do his job. And if you really feel like you need anti-heal in that slot, why not go Pestilence or Contagion? Definitely think that's a misplay. He also just popped Frenzy in mid lane, I think by accident, because I can't imagine that it was any other reason to pop that Frenzy. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of what we're seeing right now out of the Sobek.
Well, it's going to be a big Sentinel of Zeus looking for the lockdown. Dardes uses the beads, but also the Argus to come through and get the disengage. SSG playing carefully, and Obey aren't going to take the bait. They fall back under the tier 2 this time. I think heeding some of the words you said. Wait for the defense. Don't get aggressive here, and just try to save what you can. Maybe it's not the tier 2. Maybe it is the Fire Giant. Maybe it's a left-hand Phoenix, but don't risk your lives for something that's not worth it. And they fall back. Tier 2 still ends up going down, but they showcase that they can still scare SSG.
That was a really great initiation by Sino. Finds 4 people with Sentinel of Zeus. That's a 5-on-4 on the left-hand side, and it just doesn't really matter because of this healing coming from Raffer. He immediately uses his ultimate, pops Sprint at the same time. It's exactly what I think people should be doing against this Nike, man. I think that we were really seeing a heavy lack of Heavenly Agility with how potent that slow is and for how long it lasts. Why wouldn't you just buy the relic that completely negates that effectiveness of CC at all from that Nike ult? And Raffer's done that, and I think has been a big part of why Sino's having so much trouble being as effective as he was before.
He's had that since the first level, picked up the blink afterward to maybe get a little aggressive here on Raffer. But 5-2-5 for Dardes, 3-3-3 there for Cherio. Not necessarily stellar pop-out games, but very much in the style SSG want to play. They're picking up the kills they want, and they're farming themselves to the point where they are massively ahead. 3 levels there in the jungle, 3 levels there for support, 2 levels over there for the carry. So still a lot of lead. 22 minutes. They don't have that opening that screams Fire Giant just yet, but you can tell they're waiting for it. I mean, ward coverage has been very solid from SSG for the most part. They are making sure Obey can't really make many rotations without them knowing about it.
I love the way that SSG's playing this because in my mind, they're just waiting on Dardes' beads cooldown to come back up, because the only way SSG loses this game from this type of position is if they get caught, Dardes gets one shot by someone on the backside, and they lose that way. That's the only way that Obey is really going to get back into this game. So why open the door to that sort of possibility? They wait around. They don't push waves super far up. They kind of keep them on their half of the map, make Obey lose farm at the same time, and just wait, because this lead's going to be just as insane. Just as insane a minute from now as it was a minute ago. So no reason to risk it around something like a Fire Giant or another tier 2 tower siege.
I misspoke the item when I was on the desk earlier, but the Winged Blade now online there for Cherio, just to be able to help with those slows that you had mentioned the Heavenly Agility is going to help with. Now the Oni Fury going to be started up from SSG. There is not a single person around, but it is that slow, not only becoming immune, but now having that extra movement speed for Cheerio. You get some Oni minions all across these waves. If you're looking for a team fight to try and control Sino, I think your jungler, as well as Raffer enabling the team, they're going to keep locking him down.
Yeah, this is great building, I think, across the board from SSG. I mean, you're in such a powerful position now that you can just take any fight you want. Cherio's likely going to be one of the furthest people away from Raffer in these team fights, so he might not get hit by that sprint, so why not just buy the Wing Blade? Plus, a lot of the people that he's going to dive, I mean, you look at the slows across the board, every single player on Obey has a slow that you'd like to get rid of. Wowie's Mounted Archery, Inbound's Ultimate, Wolfie's Raiju, Sino's Ultimate, Ducky's 1. I mean, you've got a slow that's going to annoy you as a backline diver on every character, so you may as well pick up this Wing Blade for yourself. It's so cheap. SSG is swimming in gold right now, man. They've got gold to burn, and this is a pretty efficient way to get to that 6 items pretty quickly.
Well, Doug highlighted it, and unless I'm mistaken, it's Wowie's beads that are going to be on cooldown for just a little while there, and not a lot of pressure over there on the left-hand lane. So he's vulnerable, and even more so now to Cheerio than he was before. It's going to be difficult for Obey, but they've managed to slow SSG down, and I say that in a very loose sense. It's still 10,000 gold, it's still a lot of experience, but it is starting to kind of come into this culmination of when is the Fire Giant going to start. Now the teams have been able to shift their attention over here. Since Pyromancer and Gold Fury are down, or Oni Fury, since it was the last one, it makes it a little bit easier for them to look to go in. Vote is maybe stepping up too far here, looking to get locked down. The damage is going to help him get out of there, but it's the beads that save his life more than anything. Chisino finally going to be able to jump to the backline and chase him down and to get a kill. And this time around, he walks away with his own life, so it's a big win for the jungler from Obey. Trying to figure out the path to get out of here, though. Cheerio looks to continue chasing him down. He's going to be able to meet with the rest of Obey. As of now, it looks like they're going to fall back successful.
Yeah, that was a very curious positioning decision there by Vote to go up into the blue buff. I mean, that is exactly the type of thing that I was just talking about with Dardes. I mean, the only way Spacestation loses this game is by having their carries make positioning mistakes like that and really kind of gifts one over to Obey. Whether that's Vote's problem for not listening to the call, a team wants to play it slower, go towards fire, pull it, or if it was the rest of the team for not stepping up when that was the decision and Vote was maybe a little bit quick on the trigger. Still, that's certainly a problem there for SSG. And now all it really does is delay this Fire Giant pull a little bit longer because it feels like it's still inevitable that SSG is going to be heading towards this Fire Giant sooner rather than later. Despite that pick, Obey's still down 9,000 gold.
And a whole slew of beads down, so I don't think Obey are feeling very confident in their ability to jump into a fight anytime soon. Meanwhile, you have Nika and Raffer kind of buddy-buddy in mid lane, running around alongside Dardes to make sure that they have the chance at aggression whenever they need it. Farm still coming up big for Cheerio. But if there were any on this left-hand side of the map, Obey would recognize that, yeah, Cherio's nowhere nearby to get in this fight. Maybe something they could aggress on, but by the time they do it now, it might be a little bit too late. And this has been the same song and dance. I mean, SSG have the defensive positioning right now. Raffer maybe going a little bit too deep, but admittedly, with the double dash Terra is able to get, he can still escape pretty safely.
Yeah, I mean, this positioning from SSG has been pretty consistent for the last little bit, and this is exactly what they need. A pick on the Sino, put him down. Dardes still holding on to that ultimate until he wants to confirm the kill. And this is what SSG needed to break this stalemate, because they were going to have to wait until Vote either had relics up or they were going to have to risk it with Sino up and alive. But Sino getting picked off in mid lane there, which is in the wrong spot, kind of stops the stall from Obey and allows SSG to pull this fire without a whole lot of fear.
And Sino didn't even get the Sentinel of Zeus off in time there for his life, so he'll be back in 30 seconds, but unfortunately for him and the rest of the team, that Fire Giant's going to, well, fall down a lot sooner than that. There's 2 tier 2s still standing for SSG to burn through, but This is where the aggression starts to come through. This is where the Phoenix defense you were highlighting earlier is going to have to be big for Obey because they missed the window there to try and get that Fire Giant defense. Tier 2 and right goes down. Tier 2 and mid is going to fall shortly thereafter, so even more gold in the pockets of Space Station. Primal Fury is going to be coming up in just a second. Buffs galore for them to strip away from Obey. This is not a position you want to be in, but you're looking towards the Phoenix defense. How much do they have in their favor on Obey to maybe stop a full Fire Giant team of SSG?
I mean, Yorm is good on the defensive. He's pretty annoying to go against because he could just drop down all those pools as you're walking in, and he's going to get those Ethereal Staff procs. The Desolation build that Ducky seems to like as of late, it becomes even easier for him to put out damage on that defense. So Yorm is solid. Raijin I would class as a very good siege defender because of his split damage. Easy for him to hit the whole team and clear the wave at the same time. Inbound can displace one of your frontliners, though that is harder against the Terra because she's one of the few gods in the game that doesn't really have to respect Sobek Pluck nearly as much because she can just put down a wall and then she won't get tossed back. So I think Obey's defense is fine, but not to the point where I feel like they've got to where they want them. You know, this is still not a composition that they were necessarily intending on playing Phoenix defense with.
Especially Dardes now with that Magi's Blessing. This is just so much more difficult to try and lock him down. There's just no maybe secure route into the back line for Obey to get back there, even though they have a lot of engage. Haven't been able to use it too well, and SSG are looking to group up here on the left-hand side, try to figure out how they want to get aggressive. Cherio bouncing between Nika and the rest of the team. They're playing that dance right before a Phoenix Siege that comes through. And honestly, I think Nika, along with Cherio, they might be able to pressure out mid before anyone can reply.
I mean, Ducky's here, and he gets some decent poke off and good wave clear at the same time. Smart by Ducky to prioritize clearing the wave instead of trying to do his damage, because he knows that Nika and Cherry can't really stand underneath that Phoenix forever with their builds. Cherry's all damage, so he really can't afford to take Phoenix aggro. It's Nika's job to hit Ducky and take that Phoenix damage so that Cherio ends up not, if they want to go for that split.
Well, SSG are waiting to go in, and there's going to be Raffer hitting the gas pedal this time. The blink comes off, and they're going to separate the fight. Sino at half health. The same thing can be said there for Wowie being chased out, and the damage not going to be able to follow up. Cherio gets taken down before he can find the kills. Ducky disrupting the backline as best he can, sitting on top of Dardes. Might end up costing him a little bit of his life, but the Phoenix still goes down. They still only lost one. Nika going to get knocked up and looking for the retreat. A beautiful polymorph from Dardes forces Obey to stop their aggression. Potentially saves his teammates there. Nika incredibly low. Raffer maybe under a little bit of trouble. But they're going to be able to get the Phoenix. They lose Cherio in the process. They still walk away, opening up the base of Obey.
I mean, Obey does a pretty good job. Raffer finds a really good blink ult, hits basically the entire enemy team, but Nika and Cherry just weren't quite on the same page on which targets they wanted to go on, and Cherry ends up getting isolated a little bit on that backline. But the first Fire Giant of the game is usually for just what we saw. It's just to make sure that you get the Far Phoenix. And now that opens up your second Fire Giant, which is usually going to be enhanced, as it is here, which is going to be the harder one. It makes your harder Fire Giant, quote-unquote, easier to get because you're putting pressure on the enemy Titan. So even though that isn't the game-ending push, I think could have been possible there for SSG, it gets the job done.
And it's, again, opened that door, that avenue that you always need, because, let's face it, look at Obey's chances. If they win a fight here, well, there's still 5 towers standing, and none of the Phoenixes are exposed. There's not necessarily a big opportunity to run down straight into a Phoenix and try to take the Titan down. So Obey maybe need a couple of fights here to stay in this one. Again, it can't be underlined how important this win is for Obey. Just in terms of the set, they can maybe afford a game here. They do want to win this to be able to stay in playoff contention. Otherwise, they're starting to look and hope, I believe maybe even out if they lose this set. So something is maybe putting some pressure on their shoulders to switch this performance around. And I mean, I'll give it to them. Obey 4 weeks ago could not have pushed SSG to 32 minutes. And even now, they're having to play it safe with where they go.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, there's no doubt that Obey has improved considerably, but as I kind of said a little bit ago, I'm worried about their strategies being a bit one-dimensional.
And right now it's, well, Sino jumps in, Sino goes down. That's been the strategy for SSG to win this game so far, and it's working out pretty well. That's 2 kills. Inbound falls shortly thereafter. Cheerio trades out his life, but he leaves 2 tasty targets in the backline. Triple kill for Nika and the Phoenix exposed. SSG don't care about the Fire Giant. They might just run this one down, but Vote in trouble there. Ducky gets him with the World Serpent, and now 3 people, well, with Argus, 4 people going to collapse in on Ducky, look to burn him down and get the full on deicide. That will be about 30 seconds with no one alive from Obey. The Titans exposed. They don't have many minions to help them here, though. Mid lane, Wave going to be pushing in. It looks like they might just go ahead and ignore it. Walk on past it. Rafter leading the way. The Titan is going to go down. It took them 34 minutes, and there was some fight back from Obey, but SSG take game 1.
Yeah, but Gora, I mean, this game has been in SSG's hands since minute 14 or 15, it's felt like. So clearly, Obey need to make some adjustments in picks and bans going into the next game. I don't think that you can just continue to go on this exact same route. And I think that some of it is picks and bans based. I think some of it is playstyle based here for Obey. You're not going to change your playstyle from game 1 to game 2.
Well, at least we managed to get ourselves through that game real quick just before we got hit with a bit of a storm situation. Apologies for the breaks there, but we should be back ready for game number 2. But first of all, Myth, I guess we have to break down a little bit of game number 1.
I mean, there's a lot to say and not a lot to say. Obey do get a fast start off. They get the early lead around the 6-minute mark. They're about 1,000 gold up, if memory serves. Ducky gets some fantastic rotations out of the soul lane early on, which is uncharacteristic of a Guardian, but he sets his team ahead. And then from there, across the map, SSG slowly claws their way back in, just truly just outplaying the opposition and establish a lead around the 10, 15-minute mark and never let it go.
Yeah, 10k plus gold lead for SSG there around 20 minutes in, and then the damage was really done from that point onwards, so game 1 goes the way of SSG. I do want to turn the attention a little bit then towards what Agro was saying on the exit there, Mifflin. He says that, Obey, that it's going to take a while for them to adjust their play style, but picks and bans they may need to go back to and look at again. Do you agree? Do you reckon they can change something up in picks and bans?
P's and B's could be shifted. The main thing is like there was incoherence in that duo lane. Like Sobek is a very aggressive pick. Hachiman is a very opposite of that pick. But the main question mark to me were the builds. You don't need Divine Ruin on your support, especially when you have a god like Raijin who's going to apply it very well. It doesn't stack up with each other. You don't need to sacrifice defense. You can go for a Pestilence to stack it that way. I don't know. It didn't make much sense to me.
Yeah, we'll see exactly how this works out then for game 2 after how that ended up breaking down there. But good plays from Dades yet again on this Hera. I think we saw this last season, and obviously going into this season 2, teams realizing they can't really ban out. They can't ban out Dades in the mid lane, so they need to look elsewhere. How do you feel about Rafa, by the way, on this Terra this game? He kind of had to go a bit deeper in his god pull with some of the bans towards him, but Terra seems to have stepped up and done what was needed.
He adapted nearly instantly. I mean, we see him dashing into towers alone. He's playing incredibly aggressive. It was reminiscent of the first couple weeks of Rafa that we saw where he was locking in Kuzumbo every game. He was playing Bacchus. He was playing that Terra. He shifted away from that facilitator style, and he adapted incredibly well. Makes me think that maybe he's trying to expand his god pool through scrims, practicing out this different play style, and it gets to come to fruition when Obey ban out literally all the options that he's used to.
So we'll see exactly what he can do for game 2 then in terms of adjustments there. Or if Obey look to go back to him again. I do think taking him away from the Khepri and obviously that Geb is very important, but they may need to look for some more as we get into these picks and bans. What can E United do to take this to a game 3? And honestly keep themselves in the running for a spot at the playoffs, because I do feel that if Obey lose this one, it's going to be almost impossible for them to get out of the bottom 2. Just the start of the year going, I believe it was 0-9 at one point. It's so difficult to try and get back in towards the tail end. You kind of think if they would have started off the year this well, then they would have been a bit more in amongst it and not be towards the tail end of the league. Fafnir banned away again by SSG. No surprises there. Inbound did struggle a little bit on that Sobek.
He struggled a bit. He got off to a good early game, though. They got the pressure in lane off the back of some fantastic plucks. He played it really well, but as the game went on, it's just the Divine Ruin comes through. His squishiness is exploited exponentially by SSG. At no point was he able to engage post 15 minutes, and his team struggles for it. And then it just becomes Sino and Ducky in the back line, where Inbound's kind of floundering around, applying Divine Ruin, I guess. The pickup should be shifting. Wants to play aggressive. I would much prefer him see him on a warrior, make him play something that's a little bit more tanky. You can sit in the front line, attack enemies, dive in. This Sobek pick is a frontliner, but you're looking for the pluck, and then you back up to your team, and it just doesn't fit his play style.
Interestingly enough, the bans so far have been the same. If Obey do go with the Afro here, it's the same bans from game 1. And that just really tells me that Obey need to adjust something, well, either in terms of the game, of the way they played it, or switch it up in picks and bans a little bit in the counterban phase. Maybe adjust their priorities a little bit more here. Do you maybe a King Arthur earlier, take that one away maybe from Nika? Was Nika that important on it, is the real question, I guess?
Nico was important in that he was able to frontline incredibly well. His damage output was enough that he couldn't be ignored. But when the rest of SSG was popping off like they were, I can't really credit it to just Nico on this King Arthur. I think it's worth taking away for Obey just so that Ducky can get involved earlier on. He can start taking these fights on a warrior. We really see once Ducky gets off to a good start, that's when Obey is really able to mesh well together. It's really always been that Sino-Ducky core with Wolfie in mid running the team for Obey. I would like to see if they can't get Bobby onto the warrior pick, maybe shift him towards a facilitator guardian himself, keep Wowie on his safe picks, that's fine, and just play your 3v3 in mid, or play through the solo laner if you're on the side of Obey. SSG, no notes. They did fine last game. Maybe just clean up the early a little bit.
I do like the changes from Obey here, though. They don't pick up Nike so early in the draft anymore. Makes sense to me, because I've not really seen much of Cherio play or the team of SSG, to be honest. So maybe leave that a little bit later. They get Raijin, Jormungandr again. But that does leave King Arthur available. And it looks like we're going to see that Hera one more time. So Spacestation putting it back right now. Obey are doing a couple of adjustments to try and make sure it's not as easy for SSG.
Hera was so hard to shut down last game. He was getting the damage off from a range. The shielding made it almost impossible to kill him. We saw constantly, Ducky and Sino were constantly just trying to find their way towards this Hera, and they weren't able to stop it. If they don't get rid of this Geb in this ban phase, there's almost no way they're going to be able to stop this Hera in Game 2. So I imagine we will see that banned out. Taking away the Terra as well, that's a preemptive strike at Raffer, and it's pretty smart.
Well, it actually gets Bobby on a bit of different guard, I guess, to an extent. They don't go for the Nike in the first phase, so we'll see exactly how this one works out for them. Because that means they can look to ban away a couple more Guardians yet again. You know, they didn't ban Geb at the start. He's not been picked up so far, so maybe a Geb ban could be an option here. But there's still the option of where we're going to see Cherio go in the jungle. And I think a lot of the time there's a distraction towards Rafa in making sure, you know, the surviving gods, the supporting gods are not there. But that gives Cherio a bit more freedom to pick up pretty much anything and run the show from the jungle.
Cherio's got an expansive god pool, and dedicating just one ban to him isn't going to be enough. I mean, Kali, yes, you think of Cherio when you think of Kali, but at that same time, he can play Pele, he can play Thor, we've seen him play Susano. There are plenty of ways for Cherio to still get involved, so I'm sure he's not worried at all about whatever he's going to get to play. I like Terra on Bobby. I think this does fit him a lot more. I like him on Fafnir because he can jump in, find the hammer, switch into a dragon, jump out. You can do similar things on this Terra. You can dash in, drop your ultimate, and make sure that if Ducky decides to dive the backline or Sino does, they're going to deal a little bit more damage to whoever he hits with his ultimate, and then dash out and go back to peeling for his boys. I think that's Bobby at his best, so this shift for him is really smart. That being said, it might not work out if they don't have any more engage. If we see the Vamana's already been banned out, Wukong's been banned out, where's Sino going to go in the jungle? Nike's still available.
Well, game one, we saw Hachiman for worry. This time he's going to get the Ho Yi pickup here. As you said, Nike's still available as they ban away his Space Station game in Vamana and Sun Wukong. So really trying to limit down the warrior god pool that Sino has been running in the jungle as of late. I'm still surprised we saw Sun Wukong ban there, to be honest. I still don't value in that highly. But this has also opened up a window where SSG have got to go a bit deeper in their Guardian pool now. Jingten being picked up here. More than likely, well, under the circumstances of these picks, it's going to be in the support role for Rafa. It's got a bit of an edge of like a bit more aggressive here, Mifflin, rather than a defensive sort of god, Jingten.
Well, it's going to work out just fine for him. I like the pickup a lot, and it's going to be able to mitigate some of that pressure we have inside of this Hu Yi. His auto attack damage won't come through nearly as much, so they can keep running it down and leverage this high pressure god inside their Uller.
Yeah, that Pele pickup as well again for Cherio. No real surprises there. I think Pele's been a bit of a sleeper situation so far with how it's gone. But I want to see people start to realize how impactful she can be. Cherio got some great bursts off yesterday with it. Looks like we're going to go back to it again. But Osiris, the final pick here. Jungle Osiris, how do you feel about that, Biff?
He's just put himself on a timer right now. He's not going to scale nearly as well as Pele, and no matter how much damage he decides to build, he's not going to be able to burst down a Hera in the backline through a shield. So we're really looking for Sino to get ahead in the early game and continue rolling it through objectives, get some rotations out of solo, and fight like that. If they don't go into that 20-minute mark with a pretty sizable lead, I'm highly concerned how Obey is going to fight into this comp.
Well, we definitely saw a little bit of Obey in that game one where both Jormungandr and the jungler Nike went for more damage-orientated builds, not just focus on defense. I think we're going to see a similar thing here. Osiris, just lately when we've seen him get picked up, has gone for a lot more damage and options. And in the jungle, I think that'll be the case. Let's get down, though, to the casters for Game 2 and see if Obey can take us to a Game 3.
We need to push this one a little bit longer. And Agro, I think I can actually just echo something Hindu asked. Is the Osiris jungle the way to get us to a Game 3?
Yeah, I mean, it looked pretty good for Sino for large portions of the last time we saw him play, which I believe was against E United earlier on. So, I mean, it had potential there. I think that it has some good tools out of the jungle. I like the idea of it at a base level, but with the way that Sino played it, it was very, very damage-oriented, which can work, but with the way that Space Station likes to play these team fights, which is pretty much protect the king in Dardes, it's going to be difficult for them to really get onto Dardes and stick onto him without dying.
And you had mentioned last game how the most important part of Dardes' kit, which is that Argus, well, it's immune to slows, which was great against the Nike, also helps work out here against Sino and this Osiris. So it's going to be difficult to keep him locked down. You get Vote back on the Uller. If I'm SSG, I'm just feeling pretty happy. I think everyone's comfortable on the gods they brought in.
I'm a little surprised that Obey was willing to let Vote go back on this Uller, just because it put Wowie so far behind in terms of the laning phase and how well he was going to be able to affect the game in the middle portion. And that's really where the game got away from Obey. It wasn't late game that really got away from them. It was mid game, and that's just what Uller is going to do to you basically every game unless you camp him. So in my mind, Obey either had to have banned the Uller or gotten the camp going and set up tent for Sino on this side of the map. If they don't ban it, we'll see if Sino's able to make an impact on this side this time around.
Now, does the Hachiman we saw didn't necessarily keep up with the Uller anywhere near as well? Does Hu Yi maybe bring a better matchup there to help slow down Vote? Or, I mean, you said maybe put Sino in a camp over here. Is that really the only way to deal with it?
Yeah, I think that's really the only way to deal with it. I mean, Hu Yi is a better boxer than Hachiman straight up, but it doesn't outbox Uller if Vote's going to be accurate. And Vote has been nothing if not accurate on this Uller pick so far this year. So I think that you're not picking a hunter that can match Uller pressure in lane. They're just none of them exist. So you have to get help if you want to play around this side of the map at all. It's also an option to do what Obey did last time. Just leave Wowie on the island, trust him to not die. Wowie did a very good job of that, but it really limits his effectiveness until we get to level 26 items.
Well, Vote says thanks for the purple buff, and, well, Obey get to say thanks for the beads over there. Vote burns them just trying to escape there. But they walk away with the XP, they walk away with the buff. Now they're going to be able to pick up theirs just for an added bonus. Obey are trying to reply over here on the blue buff, but I don't know, it feels like maybe picking for scraps is the best way I can word it. They're picking up whatever's left for them. You don't necessarily expect Ducky to take control and dominate this lane. Maybe it's just Sino's presence over here that is going to give them a small advantage.
I think that's a big thing for me with this draft and the way that it went in Game 1 and Game 2 is that where is Sino really supposed to gank? I mean, you're not really going to be able to get easy ganks off on the Uller. He's going to be pushed up, but he's got 2v1 potential pretty easily. You're not going to be able to gank the solo lane. It's really can only be mid.
And now it's going to be on to Cherio. They lock him down in between, but Wolfie's incredibly low. So is Sino. Argus goes one way. It's trying to chase him down. Dardes picks up one. Doesn't have the mana to pick up the other. The question is, when does he turn back? His inbound was in the way to help out Sino, but he's going to be able to get away from this one. First Blood was still, well, maybe not First Blood. First Blood there for Dardes, at least. Picked up on the retreating mid laner, but Sino staying alive in that. Is it going to be important? I mean, if you make a trade like that, is it a big deal if this Osiris stays alive?
Yeah, it just gives him more time on the map that he can use to farm and catch up a little bit. But Dardes getting a big kill, despite Obey getting the actual First Blood onto Cherio. Cherry does his job, gets enough damage off, and Dardes comes in and plays pretty easy cleanup crew. That's exactly where you want to be playing Hera, where it's a small choke point, everyone's grouped up, you can land everything pretty easily. And now Dardes is off to another small but tangible lead in the mid lane, and that's exactly what you really can't have because, as I was just saying, that's really Sino's only interaction point on the map right now. Unless you're going to go over to the duo lane and accept that it's going to be a harder gank and try and kill this Uller, I think that this is going to be tough for Sino to snowball this Osiris out of control. I think he really has to go in the duo because the right side just really isn't an option, and now Dardes is in a pretty safe position in the mid.
Well, the tale of purple buff revenge started here for Obey. They want to make their way over here and try to steal that one out from under the nose of SSG, but SSG recognize it, see that it's happening, and they're rotating on in. Iraffer going to be able to get aggressive. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel is going to be able to burn some beads, and while Obey walk away with their lives, they did burn a little bit of relics and a couple of ults there just to make sure they stayed alive.
You get inbound to back up off that buff. He was only level 4 at the time, so still has access to that ultimate, but Raffer trades his ult for purple buff secure, which you're pretty happy with every time.
And now it's the lockdown onto Vote. Not enough to be able to get anything. Felt like there could have been maybe a little bit more potential follow-up from Obey, but I think they recognize that it's just difficult to lock down Vote anytime, anywhere. Cyno, a little under duress as he's going to get collapsed on. That's going to be the Argus collapsing in on him. It's going to be low health. And Taiko Drums come out to help return that one. Cherio goes down. Dardez just between a rock and a hard place, and then a World Serpent on top of it. Nowhere to go. And they end up getting the kill. Maybe not exactly where you expected it, but where they wanted it onto the mid laner.
Man, beautiful rotation in from Wolfie. He does a ton of work in the midst of that fight. And good trust from Cyno to come on back, understand that his anti-heal and damage was going to be important onto Cherio when he was in that Pele passive, where he's going to get a lot of ability lifesteal and extra power. That was really nicely done by Wolfie in a rare misstep by Dardez. Dardez finds a much harder polymorph shot and then misses the Argus drop-down damage, which was really the difference maker in making sure that Cyno could come back in and be effective in that fight.
It's always interesting how those things work, right? The skill shot being the hardest thing to hit, the pros make it look easy, and sometimes that nice giant AoE goes a little bit wide. But as it is right now, I mean, being able to take some of the control here, finding that kill, maybe even getting aggressive, they want a little bit more. The World Serpent's going to come through. Going to end up looking for a retreat here. Nika maybe in a position to follow up on this, but Ducky just wanting to get aggressive, the rest of Obey wanting to get aggressive, and Cherio maybe took the bait, goes in a little deep. They get the polymorph in return, and that's going to be the Argus drop down to try and find some of this damage in the backline. Cyno going to be about half health, and it's going to end up being Nika that bites off more than he can chew. Raffer's rotated in, but not a lot of mana to follow this up. Cherio comes tearing through and finds one, is looking for another, but it's going to be the lockdown. A double kill for Ducky is going to be able to find those kills. And inbound Wolfie, maybe one hit away, but they're not nearby enough for Dardez to try and pick anyone up on the straggling retreat. So Obey find that lead, find the picks they want.
Huge fight for Obey on this side of the map, and really just good use of that Terra ultimate and a really, really good ult coming through from Cyno as well. But Ducky gets a little bit greedy. Dardez stayed here that entire time, gave up a whole mid-wave just because he knew Ducky was going to stick around a little bit too long, and Nika's TP in seals Ducky's fate. And now that's a bit of a rough spot for Ducky because he's going to lose out on a full wave of experience most likely. Has his teleport up, so shouldn't lose his blue on top of that, but just when Obey was feeling like they got some momentum, a bit of a mistake there from the solo laner.
I will say, can't fault him too much for it, because who expects Dardez to just be chilling in the middle of the jungle 8 minutes in? It's not necessarily where you expect your mid laners to be. But it does end up affording them a lot. Right now, they might be able to get Raffer off this side, getting a little bit aggressive. Luckily, Xingqian has a couple of leaps to get him out of there, but that's going to be a chase down from Wolfie. Even the Taiko Drum's going to come through just to clean up the kill. And that opens up potentially a Gold Fury here. No Iraffer. Nika's on the other side of the map with teleport down, and Obey are going to move in.
Cyno looking for Vote, finds him with that Lord of the Afterlife. Wow, he's right there with the CC follow-up, and Vote has got nowhere to go. One by one, Spacestation come marching in, and Obey are able to take them down, but it's costing them double ults for each kill they're getting, Gormai. That seems to be the going exchange rate. One Spacestation member for 2 ults from Obey Alliance. Because of that big investment, they can't find too much afterwards.
And Cherio just a little wide there on his ult, not going to matter, still has the nice damage follow-ups on the autos and is able to lock down Wolfie. So at least they're finding some picks in retaliation here on the side of SSG, and that's a lot of what kept them in the game last time around. The kills were 4-2 before they turned it around. Now it's 8-4, still the same ratio, but they're picking them up left and right. Cyno goes down in mid with the help of Argus. And Dardez is just going to be able to walk away from this one. Low health, but alive nonetheless.
Scrappy game number 2 so far. A lot of kills just because he was looking at me weird. You know, Sino shouldn't be allowed to sit underneath his own tier 1 tower. Dardez and Cherio take care of that. I think that this Pele and Hera combo for these two, they just look so comfortable on these two picks, and they're two picks that just have a lot of great burst damage potential, CC potential. They don't DR each other between the polymorph and the knock-up, so you're CC'd for exactly as long as it says it's going to CC you for, which is really, really important. And I think that it's just given a lot of teams, not just Obey, problems in assessing the damage output potential for both of these characters put together and the CC potential as well.
Well, it's something SSG have been working on, and so far have been able to make work for them. And even though the kills maybe lean a little bit in favor of Obey here, the gold is not that much difference. About 400 between the two of them, and they weren't able to get that Gold Fury. They wanted to start up earlier, so still that big swing potential left on the map. Sino keeps putting some pressure over there in the mid lane, keeps kind of peeking in on Dardez every now and then to see if that avenue is open for him. But unfortunately, this Osiris jungle, after the beginning, hasn't necessarily opened the doors that, I mean, Obey wanted to, that Mifflin wanted to, that anybody really wanted to see out of it.
Down about 300 gold right now to what Cherio has on the other side. Staying close enough in levels. And Sino's been a part of every single kill for Obey, which is certainly not a coincidence. I mean, it's not like he's been a complete non-factor in this game up until this point. But I don't know. It's kind of hard to judge what you want out of Osiris jungle. In theory, I think that you would want it to get really far ahead in the jungle and just be this super unstoppable tank and damage dealer at the same time. But I don't know how realistic that expectation really is. I think that having it be at this point in the game, you know, staying pretty even with the enemy assassin while having a little bit more utility, I think that might be the way to think about it. I think that maybe a lot of people, myself included, have kind of been thinking about these warrior jungles a little bit incorrectly. I think that it's really there is more, it's bringing damage, slightly less damage than an assassin, but slightly more utility. And Osiris certainly brings that all the time. I mean, the anti-heal's there, but not necessarily the most important part. It's really that judgment tether. And if Sino can get really big judgment tethers off, that decreases the damage of everyone that he's tethered, not just against him, but against all of Obey. And that's going to really help in these team fights.
Well, Nika seems to be trying to lock down a couple members of Obey right now. Cherio's going to make the rotation in, and it's looking like Ducky is the one on the chopping block. But that World Serpent's too big for any regular knife to cut through. And he's going to be able to jump ahead back under that Tier 1 tower. A little bit of a zone from iRaffer, but no blood found by Spacestation Gaming. They get the control back in this jungle, though, and kind of thwart the invade that was coming out of Obey to make sure that they don't find anything out of Nika, they don't find anything out of that jungle, and they just don't find anything from that gank.
And Ducky, still without that ultimate now, is going to be in a position where he's got to really respect a rotation in from Dardez. Hera is one of those characters that doesn't mind seeing a Yorm on the other side, because Argus is really, really difficult for any Yorm to deal with at any time. You proc that dazed effect, because of course he can't get knocked up, but it'll make him take extra damage from the Argus as soon as he lands. Then the polymorph is hard to miss on a target that big, and you're going to make it very, very easy for you to take him down pretty quickly. I think that's why Ducky's gone for the beads in this game, to make sure that it isn't just guaranteed kills.
Well, Cherio cutting it a little close there, but he's going to be able to walk away. Solos the Pyromancer for his team and loses his ult in the process, but walks away with his life. Now Whirlwind of Rage and Steel looking to try and toss some people back. iRaffer in the middle of a bad spot, though, ends up losing his life. Wolfie one hit away, but the question is, who does Dardez want to target? And the lockdown looked like it could have been on inbound, but a good stun stops the aggression. And even though you have Nika coming in to rotate into the backline, I don't know if there's much SSG can find out of this.
Everyone has gotten back to base already. That was very low. Inbound has definitely had a better game on this Terra than he did on that Sobek. It just feels like Mifflin's point on the desk of this is just the style that Inbound suits a little bit more has really come to pass so far.
All right, now he's a little bit low health, maybe too close for comfort, at least for me. And the Gold Fury started up by Obey. SSG trying to figure out how they want to go in, and World Serpent is going to be channeled here by Ducky. He's going to be jumping around, and Cherio's in the middle of every member of Obey. They'll burn him down, no problem, and now the lockdown's going to be coming through. Sun's going to be dropped onto Raffer, whose health is starting to wane, but it's not quite gone just yet. Sino picks up the kill, but they trade out inbound in the process. So far, 2-for-1 trade. Nika takes Wowie up into the sky. It's looking for the lockdown, but Sino's low. Who do you want to jump in on? And that's the question SSG just don't seem to have an answer for. Nika couldn't focus anyone down low enough and loses his life vote trying to run away. The Taiko drums coming out in his favor, and just barely they clip him on the retreat. So Dardas stays alive, but watches as every one of his teammates goes down. He's looking to lay in wait for a Gold Fairy, but unfortunately for him, ward coverage and Ducky exist, and that's going to be a full collapse, a deicide essentially, as SSG fall down, and maybe no Gold Fury, but I would argue that's a pretty big win for Obey.
This call to immediately stick the back, this is a back and fire call. You have to be going to Fire Giant if you're not going to get the Gold Fury. But this is really, really risky here, Gore, because Nika's up in 5, has teleport up, Cherio is up, Raffer is up. You don't really have the 5-on-1, the 5-on-2 that you're really looking for. Nika's going to channel that teleport, Vote's on the way, and Obey still hasn't even started this FG yet.
Cherio's available with his ult, able to dash in there. Nika, as you had mentioned, teleported on in, and Raffer has eyes on the Fire Giant. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel, going to grab a couple and toss them right back into the pit, and they're going to be looking for it. Wolfie low in the back line. Nika picks up the kill. Raffer's low, but it doesn't matter. Wowie ends up trading out his life. Nika credit for the kill. Sino incredibly low. One shot from Vote is all it takes, but he doesn't even need it. A triple kill for the solo laner from Spacestation Gaming ensures that they walk away from this one with a win. And now they're even talking about potentially starting up this Fire Giant. Inbound still lurking in the jungle. Dardes making sure to kind of get some eyes on it, and it looks like maybe a bait from SSG to burn down the support from Obey Alliance. He's going to lose his life in just a second unless he has some crazy jukes in his pockets. So far it's working out. The walls help him a little bit, but now the Fire Giant may be open for SSG, but more importantly, a 4-man swing in their favor.
It's just brutal to win a fight as cleanly as Obey did. They 4-for-1 SSG on that Gold Fury fight, and then they just make the wrong call. I don't think they realized how early on in the game it was. They didn't take a close enough look at the respawn timers. They're doing things like clearing speed on the way towards that Fire Giant. That's not the difference maker by any stretch, but I think it shows the lack of urgency in getting to that Fire Giant. If you're going to go for that call, I think you've got to walk straight there. And I agree that Obey can't walk straight there. They were a little bit too low. Cherry and Raffer were up. Why aren't we just pulling Gold Fury after winning that fight? Now you've thrown that fight away.
Well, they pull Gold Fury this time around. They grab it, but they're going to be in trouble doing so. Sino used the Lord of the Afterlife to try and get away, but Raffer says, no, get right back in the fight. They end up eliminating him. Wowie goes down as well. Inbound, stuck between 3 members of SSG as Cherio just puts on his juke shoes for a second to dance around Wolfie. Ends up losing his life in the process, but Vote gets a double kill. Now Nika's made this rotation in. Ducky's way over there in left, making the rotation over. So while Wolfie has the speed right now, and the dash in his favor, it's not going to last too long. Raffer keeping eyes on him. Maybe trading out too much pressure just to chase down the mid laner, but it's going to be an incredibly staggered kill here onto this Raijin, as long as he can still get it at the end of the day.
Oh, Raffer's got this one in the bag. No chance Wolfie escapes here. Completely out of mana now.
There it is.
Raffer not even going to use the Furious Roar and just make sure his axe gets the job done. You got to feel for Obey, man, because they looked a lot better. They are team fighting much better in this game than they were in game number 1. And really, I think they just make the wrong call on that initial Gold Fury fight. Imagine how different the landscape of this game looks if instead of backing and going to Fire, Obey takes the win, goes immediately towards Gold Fury, gets gold, and then resets and starts putting pressure elsewhere out on the map. I think that Obey is likely up 5K or so at this point, but as it stands, they're actually down 3,000 almost in over 5,000 experience. And that's where being a new team, I think, comes into play. I mean, you just have a whole lot of different things. You're not exactly sure who's making those calls. You know, your objective shot caller is usually a little bit different than your fight shot caller. You haven't necessarily figured that out quite yet. And sometimes, even if it is the same person and you feel confident in their call, frankly, players just make mistakes at times and make the wrong call, and you just live with that as a teammate. You know, you take their 9 correct calls and their 1 bad call as they come. That just happened to be a bad one for Obey, and it really cost them.
And unfortunately, right now, they're more backs against the wall than they have been. Even in Game 1, it feels like this was around the time that SSG really started to pick things up and start to dominate the game. And it's dancing around that Fire Giant, maybe looking for the picks. The ward coverage, once again, from SSG is to make sure that there's no rotation Obey can make without them maybe sniffing it out in the process. And with no Pyromancer available, with no Fury on the map right now, it really is what breaks the stalemate to open up that FG. And Cherio's just going to start running straight at them. Wolfie gets a little bit of damage done to him, but SSG fall back, maybe to bait out Cyno, and Ducky over here collapse in on the 2 members that are alone. World Serpent is going to be coming out just for the disengage, it looks like, from Ducky. And SSG will take this as a pretty big win. They force Obey to fall back.
Wolfie now the furthest one forward, has to be careful because he has no Aegis. Great blink in from Rapper, but he finds nothing but CC immunity.
And now it's going to be the lockdown. What can you find afterwards? Cyno's alone, but he's going to have the Lord of the Afterlife to jump to the other side. Cherio looking to chase him down. 1 auto is all it takes, but that tether is just so pesky. It forces Cherio to fall back. And now Argus disrupting the midline of Obey. Nika in the middle of them as well, trying to find any and all damage they can to lock them down and get the team in here. Cherio comes in, looks for the cleanup, but it's Nika, it's Dardez, it's Vote picking up the kills for Space Station Gaming. 1 by 1 they fall, looking for the double kill potentially onto Wowie, but he's going to fall back. Nice little blink from Cherio. It's not going to be able to find the kill, not the damage they need, but they still have 5 people standing strong here on the side of SSG. Cherio maybe needs a little bit of health to his name. That smells like a Fire Giant.
Just a really disjointed fight there from Obey. I mean, they're a little bit weak after that last engagement. They kind of walk into that a little bit low on relics, a little bit low on resources, it felt like. I mean, they had ults, but they just got so split up in the midst of that fight that it was really hard to lock down any one member of SSG, and that fight just goes on long enough that I think that the level disparity, certainly in support, ends up making a pretty big difference there. Raffer's able to frontline for longer and more effectively with his 3-level lead on the Xing Chen, and Space Station just win the war of attrition long enough.
You know, I never... Well, I guess I thought we would see it come to fruition, but I didn't think it would be as true to form. You had mentioned how, you know, SSG don't necessarily have the fastest burn in the game when it comes to objectives with everything they have. And that was showcased by that Fire Giant. That took a little bit longer than I thought it would take, and I think SSG maybe were in the same boat. They get it, but they're not necessarily in position for this Fury. Obey have kind of dug in some trenches for themselves to try and start this up and start it off with at least a semblance of control.
Nice idea from Obey to try and set the trap, catch someone sleeping here from SSG on their walk up to Gold Fury, but some spidey senses tingling there for Nika as he walked in the jungle. You know, it's quiet, too quiet. Drops the ward right behind the rock, sees the team, and it eventually gets enough space for Space Station to walk in and get the Primal Fury.
Well, this Tier 1 tower is just a blip on the map as far as SSG are concerned. They should be able to take that no problem, and they have a split. Nika's in the jungle, just stealing away experience camps right now. Pressure on the Tier 2 and left, maybe a little bit of pressure on the Tier 2 and mid. And Obey are looking to start a defense for this one. But Cherio's coming around the back. He's standing right on top of a ward right now, which makes it unfortunate for him. He's not going to be able to get the gank off that he wanted to. But he has a wave in mid now, so maybe he doesn't need it. He's still going to be able to get the pressure as Ducky is forced into the World Serpent, going into the back line this time around. As he looks for a little bit of pressure. Dardez caught out way too deep in the jungle, and Wolfie's going to be able to pick him up with the Drums of War. It's going to be a 1-for-1 trade in far as the mid laners. Cherio, 1 hit away, and the ricochet from WoW, he's going to be able to come through. The 3rd bounce does it. And now it's looking like a 2-for-1, a beautiful pickup there. Wowie under pressure in the back line, but he's going to be able to jump on out of that one using the dive bomb. Well, there's still a couple members standing for SSG to put pressure on this Tier 2. That's a huge win for Obey.
Nice shot there from Wowie in what has been a pretty quiet set for him because he's been relegated to Uller babysitting duty on that left-hand side, but able to contribute there with a really beautiful ricochet. Unfortunately, for Obey, the 2 members that they kill are not the ones that really matter on tower sieges, and it's the mage and the jungler. It's really the frontliners and the hunter. that makes the most difference, and that's why Spacestation's able to still grab that tier 2 tower. But all things considered, you get FG off of Cherry and Dardez, who've both given you pretty significant problems so far this game, and you stall out this FG a little bit longer from SSG.
Force them to fall back at least a little bit so they can get Pyromancer. Not looking like a lot of pressure to follow up on any other tier 2s here, so SSG gonna back spend some of that gold that they just earned the hard way. And maybe rethink the way they engage some of these. I mean, Dardez, at least to me, seemed like they wanted to make some kind of loop and was maybe just a little too deep in the jungle. Same thing could be said for Cherio, where it ends up ultimately, I would say, working out because they get the objective they sought out for. But the team fight maybe needs to be thought a little bit further ahead from SSG. Very similar to Game 1 when Vote took, 2-3 steps out of position as well.
It's really got to be focusing on keeping Dardez alive as well, because Obey is clearly willing to do whatever it takes to kill Dardez on the other side. I mean, Wolfie jumps in over the wall into the Tycho drums just to make sure that they can try and pick him.
Well, Vote's going to be under a little bit of pressure here, but it's the lockdown on Wolfie from SSG that saved the day. They end up losing the carry in Vote, but it's not going to matter. They pick up Sino as well, looking for the lockdown. World Serpent has been used by Ducky. That safety net is gone. Cherio goes a little too deep and is taken down with the help of the tier 2 tower, but Wowie eliminated. Inbound going down right there after Ducky, the only one left standing on Obey. And I had said that didn't look like there was an opportunity for a tier 2. That's at least going to be one right here, and with the minion wave, that could be a Phoenix.
Probably should be. No Vote, so it's going to take a little bit of time, but Argus here to help contribute should be the difference maker in getting this Phoenix down, because Ducky is the only one still up right now for Obey Alliance. Vote just does a good enough job of staying alive long enough, even when out of position to start. It pulls Obey into a narrow corridor. Dardez comes into that fight super late and is able to easily clean up, and you see why Obey's willing to throw the kitchen sink at Dardez every team fight, because when he's able to free cast, he does things like that where he just completely stomps out all of Obey.
Narrow jungle corridors, eh? Dardez will take that any time of day that he can get it. I mean, it's beautiful for Argus. It works with all those abilities. And as we just got to see, it does help them in terms of locking down the fight. I mean, even losing, Cherio Vote, it almost feels like Cherio is offering himself up in some of these as a sacrifice just to make sure that SSG can win the fight.
Yeah, it's really been his job to take the ire away from Dardez when possible. And if Wolfie's going to be jumping in every time, Cherry's been right there to punish him.
World Serpent going to be coming out from Ducky here, looking just to try and get some knockups, some control, some separation from SSG, but it's going to be Raffer going into the back line, tossing Wowie around, and the drums of war getting clapped back from Wolfie. Raffer incredibly low, stunned out and locked down there. Maybe he stays a little bit too long. The team not able to help him out, but they're going to be coming through the wall. A nice polymorph, and the Argus dropped by Dardez. Cherio goes down in the process, but Wolfie Sino incredibly low, and Vote looks to jump in and try to seal the deal. It's going to be Nika losing his life, even though Wolfie's still low inbound. Joining him in that low threshold, Dardez and Vote, I mean, the highest damage dealers you can have on the team, not going to be able to go in and clean anything up.
Man, I mean, this is impressive from Obey. They're winning fights down in 8-9K in this game, and Wolfie has been a huge part of it, man. He has been no fear, not an ounce of fear in Wolfie's body, because he is jumping in all the time, doing his Captain Twig impersonation. But maybe a little bit safer at times, so the 7 deaths might tell you otherwise. But really, it's been Wolfie putting out great damage, and Obey is just flowing together really well in these team fights. Even on the calls that don't work out for them, the call to all-in Dardez on the left tier 2, calls like that, even though they don't work necessarily, they're being followed, and they're consistent. And they'll find the way to make the right calls. That comes with time.
Well, the pings are coming through. Vote is in trouble. Those drums chasing him down. The barrel's trying to lock him through, but it's going to be Raffer once again who jumps in. Whirlwind of Rage of Steel, just making sure to lock down 1 and 1 alone. It's Wolfie now make that 8 deaths on the mid laner from Obey. Ducky tries to disrupt a little bit, but Wowie is going to be isolated, locked down, jumps over the wall, but right into the waiting hands of Vote, who's going to be able to come through with the help of Dardez, picks up the kill. They lose the carry on the side of SSG, but it's a 2-for-1 trade. No mana for inbound. It's going to make it difficult to re-engage. but Saito finally gets to the target he wants. He's trying to sit on top of Dardes, but it's just not enough with Cherio, with Raffer dancing around him. They're going to be able to burn him down. They turn their eyes to Ducky. They get the full-on deicide, and with that Phoenix exposed, they look to push over into the right-hand lane.
That should be game here, but it's really, for a 2-0 sweep, that was a lot closer than it's going to look like in the post-game scoreboard. I mean, 28-25. Remember, this game really turns on the decision to not go for that Gold Fury. Looks like SSG actually isn't going to attempt the end because Wolfie's coming out, so it's not over yet. Not quite done for Obey, but they've been really close in a lot of these team fights. But stop me if you've heard this one before, Gormizer. No one knows exactly where Dardes is. They start a fight thinking that they're going to win it, and then Dardes comes and drops a bomb right on your backliner's head. One-shots Wolfie all by himself, and then sets up the whole team fight afterwards, staying alive, perfect relic usage, yada yada. Dardes is a beast. And Space Station win another fight because of his quirky yet effective positioning.
Well, right-hand Phoenix at least spawns back here for Obey. And Wolfie's unseen right beyond the Fire Giant pit. Ducky is seen inside the Fire Giant pit, though, so he loses his life. That's another minute. They don't have to worry about this Jormungandr. And, well, the Fire Giant sitting at about half health, and Wolfie, while he might have had an interesting position before, is nowhere to be seen to try and steal this one through the walls. SSG are going to be able to get that. Right-hand Phoenix is already weak. There's still that pesky tier 2 in mid, but with the positioning that the rest of SSG are taking, specifically Raffer being as aggressive as he is, this looks like it could still be a Phoenix.
Should be very quickly. This Phoenix didn't get a chance to regen fully all the way. This Fire Giant's enhanced, so who cares about backdoor protections? They don't exist anymore to anyone who has that Fire Giant buff. No wave coming in mid or left, so SSG do have some hard work ahead of them if they want to try and siege this Phoenix. I would expect them to do just this. Get the tier 2, start backing up, go to Primal Fury, back, spend your gold, push out these side waves, and get ready to celebrate your sweep.
You know, I always forget just a little bit of how good Enhanced Fire Giant is, because sometimes we don't even get to see it in some of these games. And watching that tier 2 disappear faster than any of the health bars on Obey have, or any of the health bars on SSG have, is kind of enlightening to where it goes. And right now, the struggles for Obey, looking for a very solid Phoenix defense when things haven't necessarily been going well, and they're not even pushed up the way that you would think. I mean, trying to maybe get some minions over there in mid, they're focused on this right-hand side of the jungle. Stop the fire minions for sure, but this seems like a kind of scary place to maybe position for a fight.
Yeah, setting up an ambush, but Raffer's the last person they really want to ambush, and again, Spidey sense is tingling, walks up. Tanks are doing a good job this game, being the first ones forward every single time into these jungle corridors. There's no reason to have Dardes or Cherry or Vote be your first one in those sorts of instances. That's how you lose these leads and stall out these Fire Giants. So good fundamentals here by Space Station. But Obey's not losing anything by going for those plays. They weren't going to be doing anything anyways during that time. It's really just a good attempt, but good fundamentals from SSG.
If anything helps them capitalize on their positioning, they're going to push up those minion waves anyway, because otherwise you end up in exactly this position where it is the waves from SSG looking to help push down these Phoenixes. One in mid, one in left. I'm getting deja vu from last game because Ducky is trying to defend against Nika and Cherio, but it's going to be the aggression from Raffer on the other side. We're going to have a little bit of pressure, but there's the Argus drop. Cherio looking to try and lock him down. Dardes gets credit for the kill onto inbound. That's one tank down, one to go as Ducky is going to be coming out of that World Serpent here shortly, and he comes out of it in front of maybe the worst people to come out of it in front of. The 3 damage dealers from SSG burn him down. Dardes, credit for that kill as well. Phoenix is still standing. In fact, Obey is still standing, but maybe not for long. Wowie is just almost decimated in the background. One hit away from death, and now the Phoenixes are going to go. SSG are looking to potentially walk this one in, try to find the end of the game, but they still have a little bit of a fight to go. Fire minions on the right-hand side are going to help them out.
Cherry blinks in, looking for the damage onto Wolfie, but Wolfie finds it on return, but Dardes will take care of the opposition mid laner, and Space Station will take care of Obey Alliance. Again, Gore, I think this set was really closer in execution than what the post-game stats are really going to look like, but Obey, clearly just one or two things they need to do differently. I think they still need to work on getting a little bit of diversity in their draft and in their play style. But to play as well as they did today up against the hottest team in the world, I don't think should be too disappointing.
It's pretty impressive from what we've seen. Unfortunately, again, it maybe isn't quite the win they needed, but SSG, they keep their hot streak going. They keep themselves on the top of the standings. I'm sure they're pretty happy. Let's go ahead and jump up to the desk to see how they feel about the way game number 2 went.
Thanks so much, Gore and Aggro. Before we get to break down that set real quick, I should say, apologies. Quick bit of announcement for you. Maxonomics still got that chair promo going on for you. Yes, I'm selling out today. $50 off if you use SMITE Max on their website. Head over to need4seatusa.com and get yourself a nice discount on their chairs there. You can get your name written on it, or Juress, or whatever else you would like. Back to the set, though, and to break that down with me, I've got Mifflin joining again. Miff, first 16 minutes, Obey looked really good. Honestly, like that was a good start from them. They were in a good position, and then they made an FG call, and they got royally punished for it.
What are you doing FG at 16 minutes for Obey? That thing is tanky, it does a lot of damage, and you don't have that. You have an Osiris in the jungle, you've got a Jormungandr in the soul lane. That's not damage output. You don't have the burn potential for the FG. And they go for it. They don't get it. No surprise to anyone. And then from there, SSG kind of roll with it. Obey does have a couple good fights, though. It's not all bleak and doom. Around 28 minutes in, we see that Wolfie and Ducky are able to dive deep into the backline, pop off, win a team fight handedly for Obey. Unfortunately for them, Fire Giant hadn't respawned yet, so really nothing gained there.
And the bigger thing is, really, when it comes to Smite, it normally comes down to who makes the biggest mistake, but also who gets punished for that biggest mistake. And that's where this game 2 went for me. Obey made a mistake at 16 minutes, and they allowed Spacestation back in, got a great team fight off, and then ran the game from there. And Obey were always trying to play catch-up, even though they had the lead all the way up to that point. I mean, you can see this is from Ducky's point of view early on. Great picks early, double kill for Ducky, and this just set Obey up to be in the driving state at the start of the game. But then the FG, and it all goes Pete Tong.
Yep, Nika gets a triple kill, unofficial quadra actually. I mean, almost single-handedly, he just does it himself. You can't be doing that, Obey. That is a bit of a throw. But I like what we saw there. Obey didn't give up at any point. They were able to fight in despite huge deficits. Wowie has a surprisingly good game on this Hu Yi. He's able to pop off, find a couple ricochets. His ultimates were huge difference makers in these team fights. But Sino effectively gets removed early on in the game and doesn't really have a match that we're expecting from him. Even in the late, we saw him able to get maybe 3, 4, 5 full rotations of his auto attacks off, and it just wasn't enough damage to be impactful. Dardes left uncontested in the back, drops about 40,000 damage. That's insane.
Yeah, when you look at the goal difference in some of these replays too, it's like 5, 10k in the lead for Spacestation Gaming, but Obey are fighting against that. If they would have been even, if they wouldn't have done that FG call, if they wouldn't have been punished for that, they could have been in a much better state on even keel in those fights. They may have gone differently, but that just means Spacestation now climbing the standings again. A bit more clearance up at the top of the standings for them, whereas Obey, realistically, their season, at least phase 1, is probably done at this point. It's going to be very tricky for them now to even look at climbing to that 6th position with how the league's played out now. What is it that Obey need to do during the off-season, you feel, Miff, in the next couple of weeks to get ready for phase 2? Because that's kind of where we're looking for them now.
I think Aggro really nailed it on the tail end of that cast. They need to diversify their game plan. They need to diversify their picks. Warrior jungles really were invented by Sino this year. He came into the league, immediately drops in the Vamana, and then we start seeing all these warriors picked up by everyone else. That's fine. But you need to be able to play these assassins. You need to be able to have these hyper carries. You can't be completely reliant on Jormungandr every game. You have to diversify your playstyle, because if you're going to lock in these warriors every single day, it tells other teams like, okay, well, they're putting themselves on a timer. If we just hang in deep, hang on by the seat of our pants, truthfully, and just wait for the 25-minute mark, we're going to outscale Obey. Obey can't reliably win every game in the early if the enemy team is waiting for the late.
Well, let's have a look back at what we saw this week, first of all, in terms of games so far. Spacestation take this one 2-0, but how did the rest of the week really play out? We started things off with E United getting beat by Obey Alliance, and then E United went on Sunday to also lose there too, so E United really are starting to fall, whereas Sanguine, some big wins for them this week, beating Renegades and E United. Sure, those teams are closer to the bottom, but that keeps them in contention of the top 2 spots. And the top 2 spots of the league going to be very important for the playoffs. They're going to get buys to the semi-finals, so they don't have to play off against 3rd through 6th in that very first round. So that, when we look at this standing here, currently it's Space Station and Sanguine top of the shop, but Ghost and Radiance are still hot on their heels. But it looks like Space Station should be getting close to locking in one of those 2 top spots.
I think if Space Station just wins one more game, I don't think anyone can really contest them for the top spot. Even if Sanguine does tie it up, don't they have the head-to-head? I'm not exactly sure. I do believe so. Obey, yeah, I think you called it earlier. They're just about out of contention, so they should be shifting their focus towards next session of the SPL. Right now, United is a huge question mark for me. Before, I thought they really had the ability to come in and take one of these land spots, but with this downside that we're seeing this week, they need to get out of this rut quickly if they want to play in the playoffs.
Yeah, I did see Hurry was tweeting just after his games today saying, you know, he's at least happy with his team's morale to an extent of how they've performed so far, even though they've been behind and struggling in games. But E United have got some big tests ahead. It's Renegades and E United now fighting to stay out of the bottom 2 and make it to the playoffs with 2 weeks left to play. Very interesting tale there. I'm just wondering exactly, though, how Space Station will be feeling after that performance. And we've actually got an interview with one of them standing by now.
That's right. I'm sitting here now with Dardes, Hera herself, I guess. I don't know how else to refer to you. She seems to be working pretty well lately, Dardes. I mean, you went 12-3-12 in that last game. Your team's incredibly versatile. You were maybe target number 1, but stayed safe no matter what. How is that all working in game for you?
I think it was working because I think my ADC player is kind of trolling. I think he keeps jumping in on Ula. So they keep going on him instead of going on me, so I'm free casting, and I mean that's why he looks really good, but I don't think Hera is like that OP. I just think it's working because, I mean, once again, I think Vote is trolling a bit, but it's working, I guess, so why not?
I mean, hey, if he's going to die so you can live, you're not going to start complaining at all, are you? I mean, it feels good for you, and it translates pretty well. You guys are on a win streak right now, one of the longest, I think, that we've gotten to see, and you're first in the league. I mean, how does it feel taking over like in such a competitive league, being at the top?
It feels great because we had a rough start. Like, we were playing really bad. I think we're still playing not that good, but we're getting there, so it feels good. It feels great to be number 1, I guess.
Man, if that's not that good, I'm really worried about what happens when you guys start thinking that your play hits this full stride that you can come through. But, you know, a lot of what we're looking now is going to be not just the turnaround performance for the team in the win streak, but also the fact that playoffs are going to be coming up, you guys sitting up at the top. Are your eyes maybe looking forward to specifically that kind of tournament format that you're going to be going through, or are you still really just focused on the end of the phase?
I think for now we're just focused on the end of the phase. Yeah, I think we're gonna focus on the rest of the phase, and then we're gonna try to make new strats like for MSI. I think maybe I go back to the ADC mid. Who knows?
Who knows? We'll have to find out when we get there, but it's the next week, I guess, for SSG. Congrats on your win again, man. Thanks for your time. Let's go back to the desk to close out the day.
Thanks a lot there, Go. Yeah, it looks like Dardes giving the script away a bit. Back to the ADC's mid, maybe, for Dardes. We'll get to see in the upcoming weeks if that actually comes to fruition. Mifflin joining alongside me, though, but just to break down the rest, really, of what we've got to say for today. Miff, honestly, this weekend's been fantastic again, end of week 8. I think we're a lot closer, though, to really realising who's going to make playoffs and who's not. But a lot of teams still struggling this year. No one's clean anymore. Everyone's having a couple of issues. And looking at next week, which games stand out to you?
I'm always going to be watching SSG games. I'm an unabashed Obey fan, so watching them match up against Ghost, despite them likely not being able to make playoffs, is definitely going to be a standout for the week to me. but my eyes are almost always going to be glued to Radiance exclusively. This is a team that's had a lot of inconsistency, and I want to see if they can clean it up a little bit before playoffs start.
Yeah, that's a good point. Radiance versus Ghost on Friday. Make sure you tune in for that one, because that should be a real barn burner between the two. Fighting for those top spots still. Can Radiance bounce back? We'll get to see. Been a bit of a weird weekend, a little bit crazy, a little bit loopy, a little bit sleepy, a little bit dreamy. But that's all we've got time for this week. Enjoy the rest of your weekend that's left of it. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you all next week for some more SPL action. But for now, beat you!